Imagine walking into a middle school classroom and realizing that most of the kids you see already have TikTok, Instagram, or Snapchat accounts, even though they're not technically old enough to be there. That's not hypothetical. In the US, up to 95% of teens, 13 through 17, use social media, and nearly 40% of children, 8 to 12, are on social platforms, based off the National Library of Science. Even though 13 is usually the minimum age in the US, today I want to persuade you that 13 should be the firm minimum age for social media and that we should actually enforce it. I'm not saying social media is evil or that nobody under 18 should ever touch a screen. I'm saying that kids under 13 are at a stage where the risks clearly outweigh the benefits, and our rules and habits should reflect that. Since I grew up in middle school with social media, I have seen firsthand the negative effects it has on adolescents. I'll explain three things: why early, heavy social media use is linked to serious mental health risks, why 13 is a meaningful developmental stage, not a random number, and how we can put that standard into practice through policy and personal choices. First, let's talk about what happens when we put 10 and 11-year-olds into an online world designed for adults. The U.S. Surgeon General's 2023 advisory on social media and youth mental health warns that while social media can have benefits, there are ample indicators that it can pose a profound risk of harm to children and adolescents. The advisory even says we cannot conclude that social media is safe for young people. Research backs up those concerns. A 2023 review of studies found that social media and smartphone use among teenagers is associated with increased mental distress, self-harm, and suicide. Another summary of research from Johns Hopkins notes are that frequent social media use is linked to changes in brain areas involved in emotion and learning, and that it has potential to harm children's mental health. The problem isn't just any use, it's early and intense use. The Surgeon General has cited research showing that teens who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media have about double the risk of mental health problems such as anxiety and depression. Now, here's the key. Kids under 13 are already deeply in social media world. One large 2025 study of over 10,000 US early adolescents found that nearly 70% of children under 13 reported at least one form of social media use based off of Science Direct Journal. In other words, the age rules we have now are being broken at massive scale. Given that information and the growing evidence of mental health risks, it's reasonable to say under 13 is too young for social media. You might ask, why 13? Why not 12 or 11 or just whenever they seem mature? There are three reasons 13 makes sense. First, 13 is already the legal and platform standard. In the US, 13 is the age built into many online privacy and safety laws, like COPPA, which is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and it's the minimum age most major social media platforms list in their terms of service. The problem today isn't the number, it's that we look the other way and let kids lie about their age. Second, major pediatric groups explicitly recommend waiting. The American Academy of Pediatrics says that based on what we know about risks and platform policies, families should wait until at least age 13 before starting social media accounts like Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok, and even after that, it depends on the individual child. In other words, 13 is a floor, not a guarantee. Third, developmentally, 13 marks a turning point. Around early adolescence, kids are better with the ability to think abstractly and understand long-term consequences. They are more capable of recognizing advertising, manipulation, and perfect curated images as not real life. Young teens are also starting to form identity and handle more complex social dynamics, but they still need a lot of support. Before 13, kids are especially vulnerable to social comparison, bullying, body image pressure, and addictive design. They're also less likely to tell parents when something goes wrong online because they may not fully understand it or they fear losing their device. 13 is not a magic shield. However, it's a sensible minimum where cognitive and emotional skills are just beginning to catch up to the complexity of social media, but only if we back that age with real boundaries and guidance. A fair counterpoint is some experts say social media isn't universally harmful, and it's a great way to connect with classmates and friends. And it's true. The relationship between social media and mental health is complex. An American Academy of Pediatrics review notes that moderate, well-supported use of social media can have benefits like connection and support, but that doesn't mean anything goes. Moderation seems to be the key. A large survey of more than 17,000 teens in Australia found that moderate use, around 1 to 3 hours a day, was linked to better mental health in either very low or very high use, while heavy use was associated with much higher psychological distress. If moderation is key, then starting later gives kids more time to develop the self-control and support systems they need to use social media in a healthy way. Setting a clear no accounts before 13 rule doesn't solve everything, but it delays exposure to the most intense pressures and risks. It keeps younger kids in more age-appropriate online spaces, and it gives families and schools time to build digital literacy and coping skills first. So, how do we actually do this? Apps should require stronger age verification tools for major platforms. Other countries are already moving in this direction. Some European and Australian policies restrict social media for younger teens because of mental health concerns. Another idea is to push for design changes that default under 18 accounts to safer settings, meaning no public by default profiles, limited DMs, and strict content controls. For family and schools, normalize the 13 and up rule. Just like no driving alone before 16, make no social media accounts before 13, a shared expectation among parents and schools. Another idea is to use the pre-13 years to teach offline social skills, emotional regulation, and basic media literacy such as how algorithms works, how to spot misinformation, and how filters change body images. When a child turns 13, treat social media like the digital equivalent of learning to drive. Start slowly, set limits, ride in the passenger seat by checking in regularly, and adjust as they prove they can handle it. Right now, we have a strange contradiction. On paper, 13 is the minimum age for most social media platforms. In reality, millions of kids under 13 are already online, often unsupervised, in spaces even adults find toxic. The evidence doesn't say we must ban social media forever. It does say that early, heavy, unsupervised use is risky, and that kids under 13 are especially vulnerable to those risks. When an American Academy of Pediatrics and large longitudinal studies are all sounding alarms, the responsible response is not to shrug and hand a 10-year-old a TikTok account. So, my call to action is simple. As future parents, educators, and policymakers, stand by 13 as the true minimum age for social media and actually enforce it. Talk openly with younger kids about why they're waiting, and with teens about how to use these platforms wisely. Support policies and platform changes that protect children instead of exploiting their attention. We can't make the internet perfectly safe, but we can decide that children under 13 don't belong inside the most powerful, addictive, and emotionally charged spaces it has to offer. Drawing that line is not about limiting kids, it's about protecting their chance to grow up with healthier minds, stronger relationships, and more control over the digital world as they will eventually inherit. Thank you.
Great job. You did.
Thanks.
You did great. Score.
Did it screen record everything?
Hopefully.
Morg, show everybody real quick.
Everybody look.
Okay, yeah. I think we got everybody.
Okay.